This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And this half hour brought to you by our good friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Yes, Brewers Outlet. Imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drink, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. 6 great flavors of slushies. Ready-to-drink cocktails. High Noon, Jack Daniel's Crown Royal. And the Pickle Bar, led by the Barrels and the Dills, indeed second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Always great to be joined by the incomparable Neal Coolong. Sir, welcome.
Absolutely. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So everybody has their own way of trying to cover training camp. J.J. Watt put out something about when you do stats at training camp or practices, he thinks it's worthless. I agree with him. I think it's worthless. But I also do give credit to somebody who's trying to come up with a different way of covering it. How do you view stats at training camp?
I think there are multiple layers to it, and I don't think that anybody on one side argues directly against the other, if that makes sense. J.J. Watt's purpose in training camp is getting better, preparing for the season, figuring out who's going to play, who's doing well. In that sense, the stats don't matter. And from a literal perspective, that's true. If you're a fan and you're engaged in what's going on in, say, Cleveland's quarterback battle, you want insight into how they're doing. Right. Stats are traditionally the easiest way to do that. They are, in one frame of reference, objective, maybe not all telling, but they're going to give you a sense of literally what happened. Fans are looking for that. I don't think anybody necessarily tallies the stats and says, gives them their PFF grade and says this is the person who should start. That said, you can't be at training camp. A reporter's job is to tell people what's going on. That's a literal way for them to do it. And I don't have a problem with it. I've been at camp. I have not taken stats. I just kind of wrote what I saw. Stats in this generation matter a lot more. There is context behind them. And, perhaps follow up some of that with a question if that player is available, although conveniently they aren't if they don't do well. But by and large, you have a job to instruct people on what happened and tell them some stories about what you saw. You're in the business of entertainment as much as you are. Yeah. You're not creating so much a record for history. I think that's maybe where the point of contention comes from. This isn't anything we're trying to submit to Congress. It's just information of what's going on. It's not intended to be literal. Most reporters do it and kind of duck and hide after they do it because they know what's coming. It's not the context is missing, and they know that, but there's more to tell, and they'll do that. But for the day, this is what, in the case that I think everybody is getting after right now, this is what Shedeur Sanders did today. It does not mean that he's going to be an all-pro. It doesn't mean that he's the starting quarterback. It doesn't even mean he's going to make the team. It just means that he completed all 9 balls that came out of his hand during live scrimmages in today's practice. So, there's got to be something that can be said for that at least. Now, we don't know the yards. We don't need, there's a lot more to be told. But it's a basic telling of it, and I don't have a problem with it because I'm not looking at it as literally and as non-humorously as somebody like J.J. Watt is probably going to. He knows how the hamburger is made. The fan doesn't, and the fan just kind of wants to see what's out there. They make it into a bigger deal than it really is.
Yeah, no, I just find it interesting because, look, everybody's trying to find their own way, and if a fan is interested in it, so be it. When you covered camp, what were you looking for when you covered camp?
It's a good question. My thought always was I don't want to enter this with any preconceived idea. I felt training camp, it's organized chaos. There's so much going on, and as a reporter, you don't know exactly what they're going to do. You don't know what they are doing. You know that they're out there. There's some type of football activity. And for me, the best stories I ever came away with were not even remotely planned. It was stuff that happened that I saw and dug into it a little bit more, found out more about whatever it was. And oftentimes I would say to the people that knew the process and knew how it all worked, it wasn't a big deal. In fact, I had a couple players laugh at me a couple times asking the questions that I did about this or that or the other thing. The explanation I always gave was they're fans that aren't here. They're not as close as I am. Right. They have no idea what this is. But I'm telling you, they're going to eat it up just because the average fan, somebody I jokingly refer to as Joe Sweatsock. Joe Sweatsock wants to be on the team. Doesn't want to play football, but he wants to be on the team. He wants to be a part of it. To do that, you have to know what's going on. They want to feel like they are inside it. And the mundane, trivial stuff to an NFL player is a cool piece of information to somebody on the outside. So my thought always was, believe me, editors hate this, and I know, but don't take the fan hat off. You can't act like that, but to some degree, you have to remember the types of things that you wanted to see, that you wanted to know more about. Have that natural curiosity. And I went into it with a lot of that. I came out with far more than I even thought I was going to, just because there is so much. And to some degree, it's more open to the media. You can get more spontaneous, fun kinds of moments. Whether you write it or not, you can build a connection with the players there over something, and that helps you, down the line. I wasn't looking at it as a network opportunity. It was more like I want to be energetic about this. I don't want to say not objective, but I mean for more positive. This stuff is fun to fans. They want to dig into this. They want to discuss it. I remember one year there was something like 48 transactions that took place. Running backs got hurt. They were signing running backs that nobody's ever heard of before. I think one guy didn't even play in college. He was out there. You don't necessarily want to write that all the time. This is a guy that's not going to be there next week. You want to dive in more to what happened in this interaction. I remember I wrote a story about, if you remember, the Tennessee shade tree we called, and Dan McCullers from Tennessee, like 6'7", 360 pounds or something. Just the nicest, most docile guy you're ever going to meet. The absolute opposite of an NFL defensive tackle. And John Mitchell, the Steelers' legendary defensive line coach, was doing everything he possibly could to fire Big Dan up. And at one point, he smacked him across the helmet and yelling at him about what he didn't do on play. The next rep, he was going up against an undrafted free agent center who was undrafted. You can imagine guys like my size against McCullers. And McCullers blew this guy 15 yards off ball and landed on him after the play, and they're kind of tussling. And immediately, it's almost like Dan apologized for doing it. It was he kind of flashed for a moment. But it's little things like that. It's not meant to humiliate McCullers or anything like that. It was just more like, what happened? What was he saying to you? And coach is just trying to motivate me. He's like, yeah, he kind of took it out on that poor guy. I was like, well, I'm supposed to stay low and do my job. You're not going to get a very good quote, but you can paint the picture to something that fans are really going to get into, because now they're fired up about Dan McCullers, one of the most popular 6th-round draft picks in history. They love that kind of stuff because it's not usual. It's not the typical. We are here to tell you how the roster is going to be assembled. No, come on, that's boring, and I can't possibly predict that. I don't know everything that's going on. So it's more, let's tell stories about interesting little side notes. I always wanted to write sidebars. I liked the pieces of information that you can draw out a little bit, but you don't need to spend 3,000 words going over them. So I guess that's the very long way of saying I like to find human stuff that happened that was football centered. It finds stuff that the fans will want that other people aren't going to write about because they think it's useless. All
right, so I want to take it from the editor point of view. or for the person that's running the show point of view, where are they right because they have a feel for the audience, but also where are they wrong?
It's a very interesting time to ask that question. I think in media right now, you have an issue where the audience is given what those producing the information want them to have. That's kind of the way that it's always been. Nowadays, though, the layer of Google, essentially, that is a much stronger, much more controlling force behind the information that's getting out there. And I don't mean this to sound like this is, deep state stuff. I just mean there's a lot of content that people don't see because it doesn't meet whatever it is that Google says it has to be in order to get promoted. We don't have enough time in the show to go into the details of the algorithm, at least what we know of it.
Right.
They're not exactly transparent with it. So it becomes a guessing game in a lot of ways. There's skilled expertise behind it, but by and large, if your average beat reporter were to go to camp, they could write 10 stories that nobody ever sees, simply because this didn't meet Google's definition of experience. A credible source. This guy isn't necessarily credible. He's credible enough to have gotten a credential from the Steelers, and he's at camp going over all this. They may not see that. So your editor is looking back at that and saying, well, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. Let's dip into what the blogs are doing and, try to capitalize and get more audience to a point where what we have is kind of one gigantic hodgepodge of the same type of content, because to some degree, this passed the test at one point. Going out and doing original stuff doesn't get rewarded the way you would think that it probably would. Because of that, it creates a real divide between your old school traditional journalism and blogging, for lack of another word. I've been on both sides of it. I understand that the complaints that both sides of it have. I can say this with a good amount of experience behind it. Google essentially tells us what to do, and Google is also claiming it's telling us what to do based on what the audience is clicking on. All of these things are true to some degree, but it's really hard to have the arbitrary body of all of it kind of sit in the middle and overhang everything when we don't fully understand how it works all the time. Right. So because of that, you have a lot of outstanding writers that their content doesn't reach very far because Google isn't promoting it the way it's promoting 5 predictions of what the Steelers will do with Aaron Rodgers in 2026. People click on that because they're bored, and I'm not necessarily against that kind of content. It's just there are only so many spots that are there, and it does seem like original reporting journalism gets pushed down perhaps a little bit more than it should, unless it's shocking, controversial. It's got a tinge of hot take to it. Reporting what happened seems to be something Google feels is only done on social media nowadays. And while that's partially true, an expert's voice telling you what's going on, done in a way that's more modern. They shouldn't hide behind it. They shouldn't try to be completely objective. They really should just kind of tell it from their perspective. That gets buried probably more often than it should. And as an editor, you've got to kind of be aware of both of these things, and it's a really, really hard job. And I know a lot of them who are very good at what they do, but they're good at one and kind of oblivious to the other. So you don't really get a full picture of what you could get, which is really what the audience wants, variety. There's a lot of it out there. They'll click on it. You can't write enough Steelers content. People are going to read it if you put it out there. You just have to find the right way to do that that's authoritative and original, along with, I don't know what the right word is, sensational, but you've got to put a little heat into your headline to get people wanting to read it, and then they will. So it's the combination of a lot of things that you have to do, and it's a really hard thing to master overall.
You would think that a former athlete that's gone through could give great perspective on what it's like to go through a camp, go through a week, go through a game. but not many have the ability to communicate it well. Obviously, I work with the best. He communicates it beautifully. For you, who are some of the better communicators? I'm not going to say the worst. I don't want to go down that road, but some of the better communicators that allow you to get an insight into camp because now they're in an analyst position.
You know, I really liked, and I covered him when he was there, was Arthur Moats.
Yeah.
I even jokingly told him after like a 5-minute conversation with him, I'm like, you're going to be working next to me, whatever your career ends. And I'm not hoping for it to end, but you, from the get-go, this is a media guy. Ramon Foster might have been the best. I say I'm not at all surprised. He's a radio host now. It's not, you know this, I know this, and I'm sure there are plenty of others that do, but by and large, Joe Sweatsock does not know fully what goes into preparation and execution in the game of football.
Right.
They're looking to kind of skim off of the surface. When you get others, I won't name them, but there's one in particular that, in the conversations I had with him, and it was never negative, it was just kind of, humorous back and forth. He never understood the fan perspective. He never got that. He was always, and what I mean by that is he would ask the question, why does anybody care about that? A lot. To the point where it's like they care about it because they care about it. If you don't know why, then you're not going to figure it out in the next 5 minutes. You have to be there. You have to be a fan to kind of get that. I felt Arthur and Ramon were two guys that really got what fans want. They were very regular guys. You would not think they were professional athletes in talking to them. You would not think that they were making millions of dollars to savagely beat other people. Just laid back, fun, enjoyable, and they were just kind of, everyday dudes. And that perspective is the key thing. And I think a lot of times, this is obviously much more prevalent on TV, that the major networks want the star power. Quarterbacks are always going to do better. The really outspoken receivers and cornerbacks, what they want is the gravitas up there on the set. But there are others. In my opinion, I have a long-running argument with a guy in the industry about this. I felt Drew Brees never got that. Drew Brees, right. He's been trying to work media for a while, and he hasn't gone anywhere, mostly because he's not good at it. Tony Romo, when he first came in, was excellent. He understood what it was to sit down with a cheap domestic beer with your neighbor and talk about what's going on in the game. Right. Very fun, but very informative. It's the connection with the common fan, and some people will get that and some people don't, just because it's a highly complicated game, and a lot of these guys are so tuned in to the fine details of everything, they don't have time for low-level 100-course explanations. The ones, though, who get that they can connect with the fans through their own charm and through, kind of understanding how far separated they are from fans as far as how the hamburger is made, those are the ones who really get it, and it's a joy to listen to them. The ones that you do get, and they're rare. You don't get many of them. Jack Ham is absolutely an example of that. Somebody who's been doing it for a while like that. It's tough to find the ones that can do that, but you hope networks can hang on to the ones that do.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example. You'll have, I've only got like a minute to go here, but I'll be watching TV and they'll tell, well, he went to the A gap and he went to the B gap, and I'll think, look, you don't need to impress your colleagues here. Okay, you just be able to have to explain to the fan a 100-level version of what you're seeing and why it happened, so that when it's over with, they know more. That, to me, is what the job is.
I think that's a fantastic way to put it. What I tell people all the time is, don't write for other sports writers. Write for the fans.
Yep.
You got to understand they don't know what you know.
Yes.
Give it to them in a way that they can understand, and a way that they are entertained as well as informed.
Well said. It's exactly right. Okay. And I tell the baseball broadcasters this all the time. You are not broadcasting for the analytics department. You are broadcasting for the fans. There's a big difference. All right. As always, my friend, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We will talk next week. It's getting to that truly fun time of the year.
Gotta love it. Gotta love this time of the year. Thanks for having me, guys.
The great Neal Coolong in this half hour, brought to you by our good friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and hot every day. 6 great flavors of slushies. Ready-to-drink cocktails, High Noon, Jack Daniel's Crown Royal, Pickle Bar led by the Barrels and the Dills. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Insured, does everything it can to find ways to save you money. And that's what they do with Purdy Insurance. Customer service means everything to them. At Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury, go to purdyinsurance.com. Ryan Sandberg passed away yesterday at the age of 64. Beloved in Chicago. It was interesting. He came up as somebody that was going to play football. He received a scholarship offer, which he took to play quarterback at Washington State. And remember, he is a Spokane guy. All right? Just so you know. And that is, and then, of course, ended up going to baseball. But that is, he puts together a great career. For whatever reason, Dallas Green was not completely enamored with him. How about that? When they made the Larry Boa, Ivan DeJesus trade, it was Dallas Green that he's the one that insisted that Ryan Sandberg be in the trade. Yikes. Really? So he ends up going to the Cubs, and with the Cubs, he ends up having a Hall of Fame career. Statue of him outside of Wrigley Field. I mean, and one of of the truly great players. But it was his Hall of Fame speech that had, to this day, the people at the Hall of Fame talk about and have saved what he talked about during that speech, which was remarkable. He talked about the value of team in the speech. And to me, it's the type of speech that every young person should hear, or at least read. And I'll give you the quotes from the speech. That were so important. He said, if I ever allowed myself to think this, the Hall of Fame, was possible, if I had ever taken one day in pro ball for granted, I'm sure I would not be here today. The reason I am here, they tell me, is that I played the game a certain way, that I played the game the way it was supposed to be played. I don't know about that, but I do know this. I had too much respect for the game to play it any other way. I taught myself never, ever disrespect your opponent or your teammates or your organization or your manager, and never disrespect your uniform. Make a great play, act like you've done it before. Get a big hit, look for the third base coach and get ready to run the bases. Hit a home run, put your head down, drop the bat, and run around the bases. Because the name on the front is a lot more important than the name on the back. I'm all for celebrating and having fun. I am all for celebrating and having fun. I think that's important. Celebrate, have fun. Okay? But do I think that there are people that take it too far? You know, the bat flips and things like that. And yeah, I do. That's why I've talked about Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. When they score a touchdown, what do you think they do? Last I checked, they go out and they hand the ball to the official. Now, I don't mind if a guy spikes the ball. I don't mind if the guy throws the ball. I don't mind if they go over the shoulder. But like some of this stuff where, okay, we're all going to line up, or we're all going to act like bowling pins, and come on. I'll be sitting there and I find the pre-rehearsed stuff thoroughly ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. Taunting? Oh, can't stand it. Guy scores a basket and he looks at the other guy and goes, too small. Dean Smith was right. You make a basket, you know what you do? You point at the guy that gave you the pass. See, Puff Johnson still did that when he was here at Penn State. And I pointed it out to him one day. I said, you still do the Dean Smith thing? He goes, oh, yeah. He says, I do, don't I? He says, I didn't really think about it. Just such habit forming. Right? But that's the way it should be. You're looking at your teammate. Hey, thanks for the pass. I don't need to look at my opponent and go, hey, I got you. You're too small. Like, come on. Right? Ace Bailey had this terrific game against Penn State for Rutgers. Penn State won the game. But he did something dumb down the stretch. He made a great play, and he taunted the guy laying on the floor. What are you doing? And of course he got teed up for it. It was stupid. And I do mean the word stupid. Okay? Simple as that. It's okay to help the other guy up. I've said that for years. It's okay to help the other guy up. Okay? We'll go at the next play, and I'm going to do everything I can to beat your brains in on that play. And you're going to do everything you can to beat my brains in on that play. You know, figuratively, literally, whatever. Okay? But right now, nothing's happening. I'm going to help you back up. I always love when the guy's laying there and he has to wait for his teammates to come over and get him. What kind of unspoken... I mean, now you may have a different viewpoint, Todd. I mean, you also have a wider range than I do because you're around youth sports more.
I'm a little more tolerant of it, I would guess. I'm not intolerant.
I'm not intolerant of it. I just look at it and go, "Come on, what are you doing here?"
I'm also a little younger, so you know, the Smurfs were a big thing when
Oh yeah, but I don't mind that. The touchdown celebration thing where they all jumped in the end zone. I'm fine with that.
Well, that was choreographed.
Yeah, but it's like. It wasn't like they all had to line up, find the camera, mug the camera. They didn't even know where the camera was. They just did it.
I get the row the boat stuff and the bowling pins, and it is funny. They spent all those years trying to stop them from celebrating, but that's the one thing that's legal.
Yeah, I know.
But. You know, I think I have a little more of a problem with them getting wound up in baseball, to be honest, because, you know, you watch those games from the winter leagues and stuff like that, and everybody's having so much fun, and I have no real problem with the bat flip. I get the standing at the home plate. I mean, hey, my high school team got in a beanball roar about the unwritten rules of baseball 30 years ago, so I get it.
Well,
so.
no. Here's my issue with standing at home plate. I mean, it's very simple. Do you really know it's out?
Well,
I mean, seriously,
we've seen that happen enough,
right? I mean, I've watched guys you're like going and they're on first base, like, hey, idiot, you just hurt your team by being a stylistic moron. I have no respect for that. You run hard, and guess what? As soon as that thing goes, now you can, pump the fist, go around, and, celebrate at home plate when you get there. But you celebrate with your people. It's not all about you.
And I guess my argument to that is, and what game has the hardest game? What's the game that has the hardest time pushing its stars?
Baseball.
And what's number 2?
Hockey.
And those are the two sports where that kind of celebration is frowned upon. So it's
the hockey guys celebrate. I mean they score a goal, it is a big deal. Yeah. It's not as popular.
And I do, I get the part about, we have seen it way too many times where somebody stands at home plate and the ball bounces off the wall and it ends up with a long single, and then, something bad always happens. Somebody always grounds into the double play the next play. But I do think there is a line that I would like to see a little. I just think that there's a joy to playing these games that sometimes I think, I say you with the euphemism of everybody, and that sometimes the joy isn't disrespect, and it looks like disrespect. You know what I mean?
But I agree, but some of it is. Now, a bat flip is not disrespect. To me, that's emotion.
Yeah.
I mean, I use it as an example, but that was a bad example on my part. I mean, I just belted one. It's like, I don't blame anybody for bat flipping there. No, not in the least. But a guy makes a basket, you're too small. Come on, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Right? I don't mind if a guy hits a 3 and he holds up the 3 and whatever, but when you're like telling the other player, hey, you're too small for me, guess what? You got a whole bunch of other plays coming up here in the game. I mean, you are far from done.
Hey, and I get my other part of that is it's also on the other guy to prove that, if you're kind of being like that. I was trying to come up with a word that wouldn't get me in trouble. It's on the other guy to prove you wrong as well. People use that as a motivator, but I'm not. I don't see they really tried to take the 3-1 out of high school basketball in the postseason this year.
Try to take out. No, sorry.
The 3, holding up the 3 and
but to me, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
That's just I hit a triple. I have no problem with that. That's not a taunt or anything like that.
Well, they're worried. I think they were worried about the weapon more. When you shoot the arrow, when you hit the 3 and things like that. Not necessarily holding the 3 straight fingers up, but
okay. I must be missing some sort of culture on that one. All right.
It's just. It's no guns, no weapons. It's that thing.
Anything where you're taunting somebody else, there's no need for that. Okay, in any way, shape, or form, and then you have the officials looking out so much for it, then they end up making a big mistake when it's not. And wow. I'll go back to a perfect example of that. The perfect example of that, to me, is the Elliott Washington play in the Ohio State game, where they say he stood over the receiver and taunted him, and they got a first down out of it, and he was stepping over him because it was a third down play, incomplete. He made the play, stepped over him because he had to go back out. He's on special teams. I mean, now that was an official overreacting because of the culture that we're in.
Honestly, I thought you were going to go with the Ace example again, because didn't it happen to Ace where he was talking to Mike during a game? And
that was the Iowa game. He was talking to Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he thought he was talking to him, and he teed him up. And again, that guy ended up officiating the Final Four. I wouldn't have let him in the building for the Final Four. All right, sorry, sport. No, the answer is no. You're not going to the Final Four. I don't think he's a good official anyway. To be frank with you. I'm not saying who it is. That's. I'll keep that to myself. But you just kind of sit there and go, nobody came here to watch you officiate, sport. Nobody, not even your own family, came to watch the game. Oh well, things like that happen.
Well, I guess you've seen him more in that Iowa game, not to be particularly fond of his officiating skills, but...
No, I've seen him in multiple games.
I was going to say, he could have been having a bad night, too.
No. I've seen it in multiple games. I'm not enamored with him as an official. And again, I'm not saying his name. I want to keep his name out of it. I mean, do I think he's a bad official? No. Do I think he's a good official? I think he's okay. Do I think he's as good as he thinks he is? No. And nobody came there to watch him officiate. Yeah. But I mean, that's just an opinion based on multiple games. All right, then I see the guy officiating in the Final Four, and I'm like going, what the heck are you? Really? All right, well, obviously he must have graded out well. I mean, with that, because that is what it comes down to. Did you grade out well? And obviously you must have graded out well. But, and then there's some officials, and everybody has their own opinion about officials. There's a couple of guys I've looked at I thought were, and I still think are personally really good, and the fans don't like. So it's different. Yeah.
Is there official any fans like?
Oh, there are a lot of officials I like.
No, that fans like.
Probably not.
Yeah, I mean.
Probably not, but there are a lot. I mean, football and basketball. I mean, look, there are a couple occasions where I think the Big Ten officials are going to be here during the preseason. I've got it on a chart here somewhere when they're showing up. All right. And guess what? I pull them aside. I talk to them. I try to get as much information as I can. That way, when a moment comes up, I can pass along to fans why and why not. Because I asked. You know, you try to take advantage of access to something because you're trying to do it for the fans. That way, when something comes up, you can properly explain it, and you can do it as and get from them as to, what that is. Football and basketball, I do that with both of them, and I just think that's important. And the ability to build a good relationship with them. That's great. And I'll kid around with officials before the game. I'll talk to them, the whole thing. And by the way, 9 times out of 10, I'll say something's a bad call. And then when I do say it's a bad call, usually I'm just like, move on to the next one. It's never personal. It's never personal. And by the way, when the crowd's booing about something and I know it's the right call, I'll say, no, the fans have it wrong. That was a good call. I'll say a lot of times in a broadcast, it was a good call. But some of the showboating stuff, there's a difference between celebrating and showboating, like me. Okay, well, guess what? If that guy didn't make the block, if that guy didn't pass protect, if that guy didn't clear out the area, if that guy didn't throw the ball, there's a lot of stuff that went into me. Okay? There's a lot of other stuff that went into it besides me. All right, we'll wrap it up in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
With zero at Sunbury Motors Hyundai. With 0% APR financing for 60 months, you can save $8,987 in interest on a 2025 Hyundai Santa Fe with 19 to choose from. And save $9,780 in interest over the term on 2025 Palisades. But you have to act fast. SMC only has 8 remaining. Remember, all new Hyundais come with Hyundai Assurance and are backed by America's best warranty. 10 years, 100,000-mile limited powertrain warranty. Be a hero with zero. Hurry in now and save $9,780 in interest over 5 years on a 2025 Palisade and $8,987 in interest over the 5 years on a 2025 Hyundai Santa Fe. Only at Sunbury Motors Hyundai in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury. Vehicle savings based on finance comparison between 0% and 5.99% APR for 60 months. See dealer for details.